Hello, good morning, welcome, and thank you for joining us again for the next webinar in our What's New series. In today's webinar, we'll cover some of the newest features in Microsoft 365 that you can implement in your business. Don't feel like you need to take notes or take it all in straight away, as we'll be sending out a recording of this webinar along with a follow-up fact sheet later this afternoon. Also, if you have questions at any point throughout the webinar, please feel free to drop those into the Q&A box at the side. And there will also be a dedicated time for questions at the end of today's webinar. So as I said, thank you for those of you who've been at our webinars before. Thanks for joining us again, and welcome to the new faces as well. It's good to have you here. Let's take a look at the agenda for today. So today we'll be looking at Spotlight mode for Teams meetings, improvements to the whiteboard function within Teams, Outlook meeting integration with OneNote, presenting from a PowerPoint to Teams, Teams chat updates, and then if that wasn't enough, we'll be looking at what's next as well. So as I said, there's a few new faces joining us again today, so let's start with a quick welcome. My name's Jennifer Benge, I'm the Marketing Manager at Bedrock, and I just want to do a quick introduction to Bedrock itself. Bedrock is an IT managed service provider and Microsoft partner. What that means is that we implement tech that is mostly within the Microsoft stack. So that's Microsoft 365, Microsoft Teams, Azure, SharePoint, etc. The most important thing we want to achieve is to make sure that your business is getting the most value out of the technology that you've got and therefore grow better. We do this with the help of our 8 rocks. These 8 rocks are quality of service, security, backup, data, skills, investment, strategy, and collaboration. We believe that no IT strategy can be strong without an equal bearing on all of these 8 rocks, which is why in our IT assessments, we take a look at how your business is achieving and where it needs extra work in all 8 of these areas. Obviously, today's webinar is focused on the collaboration rock, as we're looking predominantly at Microsoft Teams, which is a collaboration tool within Microsoft. Many of you will be already using Teams. Obviously, you're using Teams right now to join this webinar, but many businesses we find aren't making the most use out of that technology. So that's what this webinar series is here to do, to help you get the most value out of your Microsoft Teams licenses. So without further ado, let's look at the first new feature that we're going to be taking a look at in today's webinar. I decided to start with looking at Spotlight mode as it's a topic that actually came up in the Q&A session of last month's webinar. Someone was asking if it's possible to focus on certain people's video streams during a meeting. The answer is yes, it is. Spotlight mode allows you to choose one or more video feeds in a Teams call to focus on. This means that they will appear as larger boxes on the screen alongside the main presenter view. Reasons for doing this include having perhaps project leaders on the screen at all times, even if they're not necessarily speaking, or for example, if you needed a sign language interpreter for your audience. The person who is spotlighted will be notified and they'll have the option to cancel the spotlight if they want. So you can see on the left of the screen here, that menu shows you the options that you get if you right-click on someone's video feed. So to spotlight someone, all you need to do is right-click on the video feed of the person you want to spotlight, then select the spotlight button there. The person who you've selected to spotlight will then get the menu bar that's on the left of the image with the option there with the button saying stop spotlighting me. So there is a get out for them if it's done by accident, or if they don't think they should be spotlighted. You can't just pick on people in your meetings. There is the option for them to stop the spotlight if they choose to. Also in this menu, when you right click on someone's video feed, is fit to frame. This is really useful if, for example, you've got someone joining the meeting who is perhaps using Teams within the mobile app and they've got it in portrait mode. So if everyone else is automatically within landscape mode on the screen and you've got one person in portrait mode, their video feed will show with 2 black bars at either side of their face. If you select the fit to frame option, Teams will automatically zoom into that person's face, removing the black bars at either side and filling the frame with that person's video feed. So I've got some examples here of how Spotlight mode looks on the mobile app. So on the left, that's actually a meeting that took place this morning in our business. So if you've got multiple people within the meeting and you choose to spotlight one person, their video feed will appear as the large feed at the top there. As you can see, Ed, who's our managing director, he was spotlighted for that particular meeting. You can also use Spotlight mode alongside sharing content. So you can see in the image on the right, the content that's been shared is in the image at the top and the spotlighted person is in the image at the bottom. Next up, here it is in the desktop mode. So again, this is from this morning's meeting. We've got Ed spotlighted there, so he has the large video feed on the left with everybody else's on the right. And in the image beneath that that's been overlaid, you can see Ed was sharing some content within a PowerPoint, but because he's spotlighted, his video feed appears as a larger square on top of everybody else's video feeds. So as well as focusing on the content that Ed's talking about, you can see his video feed as the main presenter there alongside that content. So once again, if you wanted to use the spotlight mode, all you need to do, click on the person's video feed you want to spotlight, right click and then select spotlight in that menu. It's as simple as that. Moving on now to Whiteboard in Teams meetings. Now I'm going to do a little introduction to Whiteboard itself first before we look at the new features, just because it's something that I personally haven't used very much before, and I know that a few people maybe haven't got used to using the Whiteboard yet. So here's a very, very quick introduction to it. Whiteboard is easy to use. It's built into Teams, it's already there, and it's a great way to collaborate in online meetings. To open the Whiteboard, click the share screen button or the meeting chat and just select the Whiteboard option there. It will open. The next menu that you'll be presented with is in the small box that I've embedded into the slide here, saying, do you want to present or collaborate? If you select the present whiteboard option, only you can edit the whiteboard, but you can change these settings later on. So if you wanted to kick something off within a team, you can do it yourself and then edit it so the other participants can edit later on. If you select the collaborate option, all the attendees will be able to collaborate on that whiteboard straight away. So everybody can add to that whiteboard, type in their specific ideas, and you'll be able to see who's done what on there as well. There are all kind of features within the whiteboard. So as you can see, the one that I've made here, I've stuck in a note, which where I've typed in, click on the share screen button, and I've drawn an arrow with the pen feature. I have very badly written monthly webinars with another pen feature, and there's also an emoji option, so people can stick on emojis like that thumbs up for bits that they like if they're approving certain bits of artwork. Or you can use it for all sorts of purposes really. It is worth bearing in mind that if you do use the whiteboard function and record your meeting, the whiteboard will not be visible on the video recording. So don't panic if you record it and suddenly you can't see anything happening on that whiteboard in the recorded meeting. It is still there and users can continue to collaborate on the whiteboard even after the meeting has finished. It will be just within the meeting chat after the meeting. But just worth bearing in mind that if anyone's watching the recording, they won't be able to see that whiteboard. They'll have to go to the whiteboard separately within the meeting chat. So what's new with Whiteboard? The updates that have come in this month have been done to give the Whiteboard a bit more of a fresh, modern look and feel. Perhaps Microsoft knew that people weren't necessarily using it very much, so they wanted to freshen it up and make it even easier to use. When you open the new Whiteboard, you'll notice there's a new interface, which has also improved the functionality of the Whiteboard. The new visual refresh makes it easier to find certain elements in the Whiteboard, and like as I say, people are more likely to find it useful. The large colourful icons that you can see on the left there in the Create box have been designed for use by mouse, touch and pen users alike. So those options there are bigger than they used to be. They're easier to touch if you're just using your phone, and you don't need to have any sort of specialist equipment. Everyone can use it across all of their devices. There are also 40+ new templates that you can use. So if you kind of like the idea of using Whiteboard, but you don't want to start with a completely blank image, There's a whole array of different templates that you could use, and you can search for one that's the most useful for what you're trying to achieve. You can expand and strengthen your whiteboard sessions with templates for common scenarios like brainstorming, problem solving, group projects, and many more. These templates are a really good place to start if you want to start using the whiteboard, but you're put off by creating everything from scratch. They help people get started faster, generate flow, and design structure for their ideas. Lastly, on the whiteboard, there's now the option to drop in images. I think this is where I would personally find the whiteboard would be particularly useful. As people are working in different places a lot these days, it can be sometimes hard to visualize an idea that's in someone's head when they're not in a room and they can't draw you a quick sketch to show you what they mean. You can now add images to the whiteboard that you can draw over to help explain your ideas. So you can see in this example, a marketing team's used it to draw in where they would use certain elements of their event within a venue. So I think this is quite a simplistic way of showing it, but you can also, for example, use this in diagrams, in more technical drawings, to help the whole team collaborate on one image and understand what needs to be done next. Images can help us learn, grab attention, and create complex concepts that everyone can understand. So moving on from the whiteboard now, let's take a look at sharing information between Outlook and OneNote. OneNote isn't something that I've actually discussed much in these webinars before, and perhaps if you've used OneNote in the past, you may have felt that it wasn't as functional as you'd like it to be. There have been so many changes to OneNote in the past year or so that have made it a lot more functional and I think a lot more helpful for your overall productivity. In this example, we're looking at sharing information between Outlook and OneNote. So if you were to create an invite in Outlook, you can then right-click on the meeting invite itself, and there's a meeting notes option with the OneNote logo. So you right-click on that meeting and you create and drop-down menu, click meeting notes option. Once you've done that, you'll be able to create a page in your notebook that corresponds with the meeting itself. This will create a link in the meeting invite that will then take you to the correct page in the notebook. So you can see in the image here, the screenshot, there's a link there saying view meeting notes. So if you've created a meeting and you want to plan ahead, get some notes there that you want to discuss in the meeting, you can drop those in and those will be there prepared for you within the meeting invite. You can also then use the corresponding page that you've created in the notebook to type up notes as they happen within the meeting. And then they'll be there linked with that meeting invite, so everything stays together and you can keep a fresh mind around everything that's happened within that one meeting and that one topic. So I'll show you from the other side now within OneNote. This is the page that we've just created from the meeting invite. It shows you the meeting detail with the date, attendees, etc., and then it has space for you to add your notes. You can see the meeting details there. None of those were added manually, they're just added directly from the Outlook invite. You can then type up your notes below, as you can see. In the header, there is a button for email page. I've just dropped in another screenshot of the header there with an arrow to that button. This allows you to share the notes from the meeting directly with the attendees, plus anyone else you think should be kept up to date. So if it's your role to take a note of actions during a meeting or minute the meeting, it makes a lot more sense now to keep everything together within that OneNote that's got all the details of what happened in the meeting. And then you can share that meeting agenda and the minutes out straight after the meeting without having to have loads of separate documents all over the place. So you're not typing up the minutes in Word, for example, then trying to find that document to email it separately and having to remember everyone's email addresses that you need to send it to. So OneNote will keep all those notes together for you. And once you click that email page option, it will know everyone who attended that meeting and it will have them in the contacts for that email straight away. So it's just cutting out a couple of extra steps that are wasting time so you can get on with the more important jobs that you've got to do. Next up, let's have a look at a really simple one that's come in this month. What happened there? Now you can present straight from PowerPoint into Teams. There is a button there that says present to Teams in the top right, and you can see it's also in the top menu in the headline banner. Once you click that button, as you can see here, it will open as a PowerPoint live in your Teams meeting. So this just takes out some of that extra concern you might have if you're choosing to share a screen and you're thinking, oh, what other tabs have I got open? What do I need to hide from people who are in this meeting? Are they going to see while I was looking at my holiday I was booking a minute ago? You can just present literally just that PowerPoint into Teams, and it will go directly there for you and open as a PowerPoint live session. Really simple. I think it's, again, another quick time saver that we'll just all gradually start using, and it'll be as if we've always had it. Next up, pin a message in a Teams chat. I don't know about you, but I'm in multiple Teams groups, and some of the chat flows in those groups go really, really fast sometimes. So if you've got a message that you want everyone to see, you want to make sure that nobody is able to miss it before it flows up and gets pushed out by all the other chat messages coming in, you can pin that chat into the group. This just makes sure that everyone can see what's going on and everyone is notified of that message. As you can see in this in the video playing here, really simple. Just click on the 3 dots to the right of the message you want to pin and select pin in the drop-down menu. Next up, also staying within Teams chat, you can reply to a specific message. This is a feature that has been in the mobile app for quite some time, and it's been quite annoying really that it hasn't been in the desktop app, but it's here now, so that's good news. If you want to reply to a specific person or a specific message within the chat, again, click the 3 dots to the right of that message and there's the option to reply. This just makes sure that if you're replying to a message that was further up in the chat, a long way away, you can highlight that message again so people know who you're replying to and what you're talking about with that reply. It also notifies the person you're replying to so that you can make sure that they get that notification as well. And last but not least, this is one that I think I'm already using, in fact, new default settings for opening documents. Often we work within Teams, within Office documents, such as Word, Excel and PowerPoint, while chatting and collaborating in Teams. Now you can have better control over how your Office documents are opened from Microsoft Teams. You can choose your preferred way to open all of your Office documents with a new setting, either in Teams, in the browser, or in the Office desktop apps. This is very much a personal preference type thing. Personally, I have always preferred to open my documents from Teams into the desktop app. Previously, this meant I had to take an extra step, clicking to the right of the document and selecting Open With, and then choosing the desktop app from there. With this update, there is now the option to choose a new default setting, so you can choose your preferred way to open your documents, and it will then default to that setting each time you click on a new document. It's worth bearing in mind that the option to open the Office desktop apps is only available for users who have Office version 16 or newer installed and activated. So that option to open in the Office desktop app will only be there if you've got that, but you can choose alternative default settings as well. So as you can see in the image, very easy to do. There's the option there saying open in, and at the bottom of that menu it says change default. So very quick and easy. Just click on that button, choose your default, and that's the way all of your documents will open in the future. So if you found any of that useful, or you've perhaps thought this is a bit overwhelming, I don't know which bits of this technology I have in my business, we've devised a simple way to gain board level consensus on what is important, what can be fixed right now, and where you need a plan. Our Bedrock IT strategy review will give you the facts to make a positive change, whether that's to drive adoption of new technology, hire an internal lead, brief a technology provider who could be Bedrock or could be someone else, or renegotiate with a current supplier. We work with CEOs to figure out where the gaps might be in their current setup and then map technology needs to their business goals. So again, this goes back to what I was saying at the beginning with our 8 rocks. We believe that technology that should be there to support your business strategy. It shouldn't be a hindrance. You shouldn't be paying for anything that you're not using to its full extent. So that's where Bedrock come in to make sure that you're using everything to its full capacity. We've got some time for some Q&A now. So if anyone has any questions on anything they might have seen in today's webinar, if you'd like to know more information about how to use any of those particular features, or perhaps if there's something you'd like to add in there that you'd like us to focus on in a future webinar, please do feel free to add those questions into the Q&A box now. Okay. Doesn't look like we've got any questions coming in at the moment, but there's still time. So if you wanted to add anything in before the end of the webinar, please do feel free. While we're doing that, I will just talk to you quickly about our next What's New webinar, which will be in the first week of November. We do these webinars monthly because obviously new features are changing all the time and we want to introduce you to them so you can get them being used in your business as soon as possible. So the next webinar will take place on the 4th of November and you can register now for your place on the Bedrock website, or you can click the link that's just been published in the box as well. So if you want to register for your place straight away, please feel free to do that by clicking the link that's in the Q&A box now. Okay then, well thank you very much for joining us today, whether it's your first webinar that you've joined or your regular. It's good to see you back again. We'll be running the next webinar in the first week of November, so I hope to see you there, and have a good rest of your week. Thank you very much for joining us.